Guys, I've got the normal show set up for a game review. I've got the normal show set up for a victory review. At some point, I just run out of things to say. It is very late for me to be making this video, and I apologize for that, but I am struggling with ways to talk about this team and not repeat myself until the end of time. We'll start with headlines. Rain Dance, Chiefs I should have said shimmy to 8-0, but I was tongue-tied and just put dance to 8-0. And then for the second headline, 14 straight, I don't even have a subtitle. I have no idea how to talk about this team. Now let's move into the big ideas for this game review. 8-0, the playoffs are all but sealed. The Chiefs have a 3-game lead in the division, a 1.5-game lead in the conference, as the Buffalo Bills are 7-2, have not yet had their bye week. The Kansas City Chiefs are in the driver's seat. They are in the catbird position in order to finish out this season. 8-0, 9 games left to play, 0 losses on the record. You're looking at 9 attempts to win 2 games to get to 10 wins. 10 wins normally gets you into the playoffs. And I don't know exactly where losses are going to come from. Look, I will say that paradoxically, last night's game made me the least convinced that 17-0 was on the table. I have not talked about 17-0. I have not talked about undefeated. It always felt a little bit like it was maybe putting too much out there. But last night's game, though it was a victory, made me believe less that it is possible. Why? There's just too many dice rolling. The Kansas City Chiefs came out last night and played their best offensive game of the year. I'll get to that in a minute. But the defense kind of didn't show up like they normally do. There was inclement weather, a little bit, not terribly, but a little bit. There was a big play on special teams. Travis Kelce coughed up the football. Xavier Worthy was absolutely invisible when he wasn't running backwards. There were so many things that kind of just didn't work out, for the Kansas City Chiefs. Still, they won. But you have to imagine that if just a couple more of those balls bounced the wrong way, all of a sudden you're in a completely different circumstance. And here's the thing. Of course, that's true. Of course, that's the case. That's always the case. But here we are, watching the Kansas City Chiefs just win their 14th consecutive game. 2 more, by the way, gets them in the top 7 all time. And it's easy to forget that all of these circumstances build up, and every once in a while, a team that should not lose a game loses a game. Last night was the perfect sort of firestorm, the perfect sort of maelstrom around the Kansas City Chiefs for them to maybe just not score as many points as the other team. They did. They won by a touchdown. None of it mattered. But if Mike Evans was on the field, he wasn't. If they had a couple more of their other receiving targets, which they didn't. If Baker Mayfield was on the field with Patrick Mahomes in perfect passing conditions, they weren't. If the Buccaneers had the better running back that night, they didn't. You see what I'm saying? There are just too many, there are myriad circumstances that could go against them. So I am less convinced that season is on the table. The number 2 big idea here, were the Chiefs playing for overtime? Go back and watch that game. Perhaps I am incorrect, but the BUCS final drive in regulation, the defensive ends were FAU and Malik Herring for the entire drive. Am I missing something? Did I forget something? So I only noticed this on a rewatch. Did I just zone out and completely miss that someone was taken off the field for a reason? Why were FAU and Malik Herring the edge players for the entirety of that final scoring drive for the Buccaneers. It almost, I'll get into something with the Mahomes monologue that is a little bit mind-blowing if we're willing to accept it as reality. But I say all the time on this channel, and I mean it. And I'm sure that I catch slack for it when I am not present, right? I'm sure people talk crap on me for it. The Kansas City Chiefs sometimes do not play games as if they have to be won. 2 years ago against the Broncos, the Kansas City Chiefs wheeled out just about everybody on their roster to play in that game. They narrowly beat a Broncos team that they should have decimated, but they were toying with their food. That's what the Kansas City Chiefs were doing. This game, that drive, it seemed as if Andy Reid was setting them on the table and saying, let's play the game. Andy Reid was putting FAU and Malik Herring in the game during an absolutely volatile time, during crunch time itself, and saying, look, guys, we have to get to Baker Mayfield. Of course, neither of them did. Of course, there wasn't very much pressure. There was push, but there wasn't very much pressure. But the Chiefs were willing to live with the consequences of saying, hey, you two, FAU, Malik Herring, figure this out. Absolutely wild. Number 3 here, it was a bad day for Nick Bolton. It was a bad day for Justin Reed. It was a bad day for Joshua Williams. It was a bad day for Christian Roland Wallace. Even Trent McDuffie had a couple of bad plays, a couple of plays that he gave up. One time he was sucked up on a play action, and Baker Mayfield tossed it over his head for an easy touchdown. I believe that was to Cade Otton, right? Even though so many players on the Chiefs defense had bad games, and no one had a great game, the BUCS still couldn't score more than 24. I say all of that to lead into the number 4 point here. The Buccaneers are not a bad team. They're below 500 right now. I do not have any reason to believe that the Buccaneers will finish the season below 500. It looks to me like the Buccaneers are a playoff-worthy team. Sometimes the seeding works out that the playoff-worthy team does not make it. But I expect the Buccaneers to be in the playoffs. This was a playoff team that the Kansas City Chiefs sort of figured some things out on offense, but had a very bad day on defense, and still won. Moving on to the next thing here, which should absolutely terrify the NFL. Tyreek Hill is, in my opinion, hands down, the best wide receiver with whom Patrick Mahomes has ever played. But Nuke is the most dependable, and he's the most traditional. Remember, Tyreek Hill was such an incredible athlete that at times he just didn't have to do what most people have to do. He didn't have to run the route correctly. He didn't have to break off his route when Mahomes started scrambling. He could just keep running and Mahomes' arm would get it there. He didn't have to do all of the little stuff. He was very good, even when he didn't. But he was not the most traditional wide receiver. I think that at times the Patrick Mahomes-Tyreek Hill connection struggled because Tyreek Hill was so talented. Because Tyreek Hill's athletic gifts were so great. Because Tyreek Hill was it is rare in the NFL for a player to enter the league as an extreme standout and get even better. Tyreek Hill was fast before he got to the NFL. He's worked on his speed while being in the NFL, and the guy looks bulletproof, right? He has an extreme type of work ethic. That work ethic seemingly extended only as far as the physicality was concerned. Tyreek Hill was probably still not the best versed wide receiver in the league. You don't necessarily see him making mistakes, but there's a lot of the little stuff he won't do. You would see him jog through plays where he was a decoy. You would see him not be particularly fond of blocking. These are just things that you deal with high-end NFL wide receivers. Nuke Hopkins is a traditional wide receiver. He's going to be in the right place at the right time. He'll get on the same page with Mahomes. There have been times already where that hasn't quite been the case. It will be. Nuke will get there. The next note is this. If the prospect of Nuke Hopkins being the best wide receiver with whom Patrick Mahomes has ever played is not the scariest thing the NFL will hear today, this is. The offense is working. They had a 100-yard receiving tight end, an 80-yard receiving wide receiver, a 100-yard running back, and a nearly 300-yard passer. All of this during a game where the offensive tackles, maybe as a tandem, looked the worst they have all season. The offense is clicking. The offense doesn't have to have absolutely brilliant play from any one person. If Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins is DeAndre Hopkins, Kareem Hunt is Kareem Hunt, and Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, that will be enough. That will be enough. Here's the last thing that I have to say for the big ideas from this game. The Kansas City Chiefs are an enigma. The Buccaneers don't try a 2-point conversion at the end of the game. It's a very bad decision. That's football 101. Everybody knows you go for 2 there. Everybody knows you go for 2 there. But the Kansas City Chiefs intimidate teams into terrible decisions. You would think, if you're scared of the Chiefs, you go for 2 in that situation. You're the visiting team. It's a raucous atmosphere. The crowd was absolutely electric. You don't have the better team. You do have an offense that is finding success against a defense that should be outmatching them. You don't want to give Patrick Mahomes the ball back. You were scared of all those things. So you go for 2, try to end the game right there. You don't do it. If, on the same point, in this scenario, you think you are the better team, you go for 2 there. You end the game because you are the better team. So again, I have absolutely no idea why you choose not to go for 2 there. But they elected not to. The Kansas City Chiefs are an enigma that intimidate teams into making absolutely baffling decisions. Offensive MVP, in my opinion, this is Kareem Hunt. I know Travis Kelce went for 100. I know DeAndre Hopkins had 2 touchdowns, 86 yards, was it, I believe? I know. That's incredible. Kareem Hunt having 27 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown after being picked up off of the street is one of the stories of the NFL this season. This is one of the most incredible things that we've seen as far as a mid-season surprise in Kansas City Chiefs history. Plucking Kareem Hunt out of his pajamas, putting him on the field, giving him, 4 games in a row now with 20-plus carries, cracking 100 yards, getting another touchdown. He added, I believe, 1 reception for 11 yards as well. Absolutely wild stuff here. This offense has transformed because you're not losing yards on running plays. You're getting at least 2 yards. If you hand the ball off, you're getting between 2 and 6 yards. Automatically. That has absolutely changed the complexion of the offense. Defensive MVP? George Karlaftis? Maybe? 4 tackles, 1 sack, a pass deflection. Nobody on the defensive side of the ball had a particularly great game. I don't know why. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember George Karlaftis coming off of the field. I don't remember an injury report on George Karlaftis. I don't listen to the game. No audio for me because it's frustrating. So maybe I'm missing something. Let me know. But the guy had maybe the best game of the defensive players, just absent from that final drive. And the game ball, again, could be Travis Kelce, could be DeAndre Hopkins, 2 touchdowns. I just have to give it to Mahomes because this was the first time, pardon me, Patrick Mahomes was Patrick Mahomes this season. 34 of 44, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns. We have not seen that from Mahomes in quite some time. This leads us to the Mahomes monologue. Patrick Mahomes once again finds himself in foreign territory, in rarefied air, in a new spot. Never before had Patrick Mahomes been 7-0 in a season. He got there. And now he's 8-0 on the season. Now, I have to offer a modicum of temperance here. Pardon me. Last season, it was around this time that we were asking how long until the Chiefs mathematically locked up the division. The season looked that easy. How long until the 1 seed is wrapped? Things went downhill from there. And during the time that the team was spiraling, or at least faltering, the defense gelled and Rashee Rice emerged as a true number 1 wide receiver. Then the Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl. In my opinion, those things are correlated. The Chiefs team that started the season was not capable of winning the Super Bowl. There were no targets for Mahomes. The defense was good but gave up chunks at a time. The pass rush was not great. Call me crazy. Call me stupid. Call me naive. The Chiefs de-emphasized winning in the meat of last season in order to iron out the kinks for the playoffs. Once the playoffs are an inevitability, this team tries to work on things that will keep them from winning playoff games, even if that strategy stops them from winning regular season games. Something you absolutely cannot do unless you have a quarterback that you trust. I'm going to defend this. I think this is true. How often have we seen the Kansas City Chiefs get off to a fiery start and then things go off the rails? It was not until the Mahomes era that we saw this. Then we saw things go off the rails. We saw the team start to buckle things back down towards the end of the season, and we've seen this basically every year that Patrick Mahomes has been the starter for the Kansas City Chiefs. Think back, I promise it's there. And then, well, certain problems get ironed out. The Chiefs find a number 1 wide receiver. The Chiefs figure out how to break down the 2 high safeties. Remember that season, 2019? 2 high safeties started absolutely destroying the Kansas City Chiefs. They started tinkering with things, and the wheels fell off until the playoffs. And once they were in the playoffs, they had a couple answers. The Chiefs at this portion of the season almost always hit a little bit of a skid. They are recognizing those things which will keep them from winning playoff games, diagnosing those things, working on solutions to those things, treating basically NFL games as if they are practices, emerging on the other side of it a few games later, and then heading into the playoffs with all of the answers that they need. Patrick Mahomes' impeccable postseason record is a testament to that. The fact that Patrick Mahomes has never won fewer than 10 games is a testament to that. That is all I have for this game review. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, so consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more Kansas City Chiefs-based content. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.